In this daily drop, I want to talk about 2 things that you should remember if you're in this crazy business. So let's go. All right, everybody, another episode of the Daily Drop, and today I want to talk about a couple of things that I think are important for everybody to remember when you're doing stuff in this business. The first one, which I think is important, which I've mentioned before, is slow and steady wins the race. Now, that's kind of a blanket statement or saying to apply to what we do for a living, which is video production and filmmaking. But the reality is it doesn't apply to every single project, but it does apply to most of them. If you can take the time to look at a project and actually plan it out, because as you know, pre-production is one of the most valuable parts of a project. If you have that time, take it to figure it out. Because when I say slow and steady wins the race, I don't mean that you've got to go at a snail's pace, that you have to do everything in slow motion. A lot of this industry is this. It's fast, it's collaboration, but it's just thinking about that saying and taking a step back and looking at everything, not frantically, and taking the time to figure things out. So when I say slow and steady, I don't mean at a snail's pace. I just mean take the time to breathe, because it can feel very hectic and anxious and immediate when you're doing what we do for a living, and just take a minute to look at stuff and to figure it out. Sometimes when I'm feeling extremely overwhelmed, I feel underwater. I'm being, pressed down with so many things and deadlines and everything else. I find that if I just take a breath, sometimes I have to put some music on, sometimes I have to take a walk, and I just start to think about and look at the project as a whole. It helps me and the project overall tremendously. The second thing that I would say is don't forget that the runway generally is longer than you think. And for me personally, when I get an idea about something, whether it's a creative project or it's the end result of a project, or just thinking about, hopefully I'm making sense here, what it is that's going to get created, I very oftentimes have that result in my mind, and then I just expect it's going to happen very, very quickly. And the reality is, and this probably goes back to the slow and steady wins the race, is that the runway for me generally is about 3 times longer than I think it's going to be. And that doesn't mean that projects take 3 times longer. It's just when I have an idea in my mind of what the end product's going to be, I have this feeling that it should just happen immediately. But there are all of the parts that come together to make that happen. Collaboration, all of the technical aspects of it, the craft aspects of it, all of these things have to come together to get to that end result. And as you know, in this industry, there's so many moving parts that you've got to realize that it's not always going to happen instantaneously. So those are the 2 things that I'm thinking about today. Slow and steady wins the race, and the runway is probably about 3 times longer than you think it's going to be. So don't be discouraged. Just allow these things to happen. Yes, we like to move quickly, but sometimes that's not always to the advantage of the project. I'm not suggesting I'm not suggesting that you move slowly, even though I'm starting to speak very slowly now because of my flub, but I'm leaving it in there. You get the idea. Don't forget to, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Daily Drop.